Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Lee. I'm a former English teacher turned entrepreneur who's helping Japanese founders go global by enhancing their English and soft skills. And I'm joined by Angus.
Hi, I'm Angus. I'm a public speaking coach. I help entrepreneurs and founders in securing investors through acting techniques designed to enhance your presentation skills.
So Angus and I actually met via LinkedIn and we teamed up because we're on a shared mission. And that mission is to help Japanese people feel more confident when they get on stage. And today's topic is actually going to be about presentations and some of the problems we've noticed Japanese people have when they get on stage to present anything, whether it be a startup pitch, could be a sales meeting, or anything like that. We want to help people feel more confident when they get in that environment. So, Angus, my first question for you is like, what are some of the things that you've seen in terms of problems when Japanese people in particular get on stage to present?
I think one of the main problems is that people are very reliant on their data, right? So when they share data, they have a number on their slide and they hope that that piece of data will tell the story as it is. But what happens is when you look at that number, sometimes all you see is just the number. And so there's no story behind it, there's no emotion behind it.
Mm.
And so what happens is logically, I understand what it is that you're trying to tell me, but I have no emotional connection with the story that you're trying to tell. So it ends up falling flat.
Yeah, it sounds like it, man. From my experience, I've seen that, you know, a lot of presentations have so much data on there. And it looks like
Mm,
they actually went into a lot of work to prepare
mm,
those presentations. But I don't know if you've seen this as well. The slides have so much text, right?
mm,
When we're
mm.
telling a story, we need more visuals.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's the main issue that I've noticed. What other
Mhm.
things have you noticed?
I think when it comes to filling the slide and the visuals, something that I personally feel as an audience member is I get very confused in certain presentations when people are speaking over large amounts of text on their slide. So, as an audience member, what that does is I get confused about whether this is a visual experience where I'm supposed to be reading what is up in front of me, or whether it's an auditory experience where I'm supposed to be listening to the presenter. Let me give you an example. So, Lee, right? If I gave you one of my favorite fantasy books, I don't know if you like reading fantasy or nonfiction. You might not, but if I gave it to you and I told you, I want you to read this first page, right?
Hmm.
And as you're reading it, if I was talking to you and telling you about how much I love this book and how much I love the characters in this story, and I was speaking to you while you're reading it, you're only going to get half of the information from the page and half of the information from what I'm saying, right?
That's right. Hmm.
Yeah, because it's a distraction.
Hmm.
And so what happens is when you have something that you want people to read on your presentation, it's important to give people the time and the space to read it. Put it up on the board and wait.
Exactly. And I think that what, they could be doing instead as well is actually include less text, more of an imagery or charts
Mm,
or data that is visually represented, and then
mm,
fill in the blanks there with what they were already
mm,
putting on the screen. If you're going to read it already, why not say it in your speech? One thing
mm.
that I've noticed a lot of people do also is they sound very rehearsed or they sound very robotic. And that's because
Uh,
they're memorizing a lot of their speech, which is good. You should memorize some parts of it, but not everything, because then you don't deliver your speech in a way that connects with your audience. There was one time I remember where, the guy was literally reading from a piece of paper, and everything he was saying was also on his slides. So it's like,
oh.
where are we at? Are we at a reading or are we at a presentation?
Mm.
So, what do you think is the number one thing that people here in Japan can do in order to fix this problem?
So when it comes to the robotic voice, right, the monotone, this is something that happens a lot with actors. And myself as a trained actor in university, I studied acting for 4 years. But this is actually a common problem with actors where the problem stems from the preparation stage. When in the preparation stage, when you are repeating the lines over and over, how maybe in a public space you're whispering it to yourself or you're saying it, what happens is you get stuck into a pattern of
Mm,
saying it the same exact way every single time. And then that that style of speaking gets ingrained into your speech and presentation where you
mm,
can't break out of it. So something that I like to tell my clients is whenever you practice, don't rely on the whispering in public spaces because, first of all, that limits your voice.
mm,
And so when you try to speak out loud, it's much harder to do. Set aside a time for you to really give yourself the space and the energy to speak out loud and make sure that you're saying the lines differently every time you go through it. That way, you don't fall into a pattern, and then you can have some really cool discoveries with your voice.
exactly. Yeah, I think that vocal variety helps keep the audience engaged and helps make the story much better. And that's what we're going to get into today is our topic about storytelling.
Mm,
Humans have evolved to be storytellers.
mm,
This happened, when we were 33,000 years ago, all of us were living in caves. The human mind actually evolved because of that ability to tell stories, whether it be through cave drawings or through language. That's how language was formed. This is how we recount the past. In our
mm,
minds, our memories are all stories we tell ourselves about our past. So we're hardwired to understand stories. But I
mm,
feel that here in Japan, a lot of times people just present data without making it
mm,
into some sort of story. So,
mm.
what tips do you have personally? I'll definitely chime in as well in terms of how to tell better stories.
So I think one of the biggest problems is that people feel that the data speaks for itself. So the first step is to break that philosophy and let people know that you need to set some context around the piece of data. Let me share you a quick example of that, right? So, for example, let's say in my presentation, I have a piece of data that says employee turnover rose 25% last year, right? That's the piece of data. Now, if I feed that to you just as it is, you might think, oh, okay, that's pretty bad.
Mhm.
And then you'll move on to the next thing, right? Because
It's not memorable.
yeah, like how did that sound to you? Employee turnover rose
Sounds
20
just
last
like
year.
another fact you would hear at any other investor meeting or whatever, right? But
Mm,
if your audience isn't an investor, then
mm.
we need something to make us remember that point.
So, how to adjust that now is to understand that these are people that you're talking about, and each person has a story. So, let me share with you some examples of what it's like to attach people to the set of data that you're providing. Maya had bold ideas, but nobody listened to her. Sam gave everything for this company, but he got burnt out and he left. These stories are not rare. They're a collection, they're routine. And together, Sam and Maya are part of the 25% of our team that walked away last year.
That is incredible.
That, yeah, there you go, right?
That the difference is striking. Right there, we can relate to those people because they have a name.
Mm,
They
mm,
they their struggles are real. We understand what they are going through, right? All
mm,
of us have had a work we felt burnt out at, so we can relate to it. I think that
mm,
is super important what you did just there. Now,
mm,
obviously, it doesn't fit for every single context. If
mm,
we're in a meeting where it's just about the numbers, then you tailor your presentation to that audience. But
mm,
what I found is that a lot of times people just have a one size fits all type of style to every single
mm,
presentation that they have, and that's not
mm,
okay. So
mm,
one of the things I actually wanted to share with the audience as well is the importance of hooking your audience. What is a hook? Think of a fish hook. What do
mm,
you do with that? You cast it out into the sea. The sea is your audience, and you're trying to hook a fish. The fish is their attention. Okay.
mm,
So when people start off their presentation, they just go right into the topic without even anything. They immediately start getting on their phones, the audience, and they're completely zoned out, right?
mm,
It's
mm,
so, so important to hook your audience so that they continue listening all throughout. And
Mm,
what I teach some of my clients as well when they are doing this is there's three different ways that you can hook your audience. One, you can start off with a quick story. So that's like a
mm,
personal anecdote, or that's something related to the topic or the situation that is relatable, that they can
mm,
understand, that they can see themselves in. You're kind of building that character that they can latch onto and feel interested in. The
mm,
second one is by providing a quote. Now, this could be a spoken quote from a very famous person related to the topic, or you could put it up on the screen in your slides. Just one big quote that everyone can relate to, sharp, powerful, and gets the people interested to learn more. The
mm,
second is a rhetorical question or a question that is very simple.
mm,
So this could be show of hands, who here, blah. That question gets the audience engaged. Literally, they're
mm.
raising their hands if they agree or disagree with you. Now, where a lot of people go wrong with this is they might ask an open-ended question on stage and
Ah,
expect a certain answer, but we got to be careful with the types of questions you give because you might not get the answer that you receive. And how do you
mm.
respond from that? So I always recommend rhetorical questions or yes/no questions.
I really like that idea of the rhetorical questions because I think, especially in presentations where you have 100 people, maybe even 1,000 people, right? I think a lot of people, when they stand up on stage and present, they feel that there is a wall between them and the audience, that they cannot dare to engage the audience because of the vast volume of people there are in attendance. I don't want this presentation going out of control, so I'm not going to engage them. But actually, as you said, not an open-ended question, but having something more close-ended, something where audience members can engage physically and not verbally. It allows you to engage large groups of audiences without it turning into chaos.
Exactly. Yeah. And it just keeps people more interested in the topic because they've agreed with you. It also builds connection
Mm,
with what you're
mm,
trying to say. So it's a very powerful way to keep the audience engaged so that they don't end up sleeping the whole entire time.
mm.
Angus, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about what we're doing in July?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a three-part communication skill boot camp coming up. It is in the first 3 Saturdays of July. The first part will be Lee, and then the second part will be myself. And then on the third day, it will be a combined lesson with the two of us here to see your presentation and what you came up with.
Absolutely. So people are going to come in with little to no presentation skills, or people who might have a lot of stage fright, or they might be unsure of themselves on
Mm,
stage. And we're going to coach you through how you can learn some of these techniques that we shared today, as well as some others to make sure that you are more confident on stage, whether it be in front of investors or in a huge TED Talk crowd. We're going to
mm,
help you, feel confident next time you get in front of that crowd. So if for more information, definitely check out our Luma page here. I'll link it in the description below. And if you want to connect with us on LinkedIn or book a coaching call with either of us, you
mm.
can also find that down there as well. Thank you so much, Angus, for your time, and I'll see you next week.
All right, thank you, Lee. See you next week.